Content warning. This episode includes the topics of self-harm and suicidal thoughts. If you or someone you know is in distress, please call or text 988 for immediate help. We're not alone.
Welcome back to The Void and the Flame. I'm Rachel, or Ray. Nobody special, just somebody who's been through some shit like most of you. Today, we're diving into a topic I think most of us wrestle with: feeling unproductive, withdrawn, or lazy. Here's the truth. Sometimes your brain is protecting you in the only way it knows how. So today, we'll explore what protective mode is, why your nervous system behaves this way, and what you can do to support yourself. I'm going to share my friend Brian's story in segments. It's raw, it's heavy, and it's incredibly human. We'll pause to unpack it and add some neuroscience insight and discuss tools for pulling yourself out of those protective patterns. So let's go ahead and talk about protective mode for a moment. When your brain perceives a threat, emotional, physical, or even social, it activates the amygdala. Think of it as your body's alarm system. So when the amygdala fires, it floods your nervous system with stress chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline. And at the same time, your prefrontal cortex, that part responsible for logic, planning, and motivation, just temporarily checks out. And that's why trying to push through or force productivity often fails when you're stressed or grieving. When trauma or grief hits, your brain may respond by isolating, withdrawing, or even feeling lazy. That's survival mode, not a moral flaw. Understanding this helps us respond with self-compassion rather than shame. I want to take a moment to bring in a piece of something very meaningful, a song that both Brian and I love, because music has a way of bringing people together, giving shared meaning to shared pain. Infinite Baths has this section that perfectly captures what survival and reconnection feels like. So I'm going to share that little chunk of lyrics with you right now. And the waters are warm where they used to run freezing. Where there used to be storms, my horizon is fleeting. I'm so tired inside, I could sleep through a landslide, but I'm finally here, and I'm not leaving this time. That's the essence of today's episode: coming back, grounding yourself, and finding your place even after turbulence. I've linked the song in the show notes if you want to listen to it. Now, Brian is a friend who has experienced a lot of loss, and his story helps illustrate protective strategies in action. And we'll start with his first sister's passing.
Nobody really understands the pain of a sibling passing away unless they've gone through it as well. I have experienced that loss twice in my life. Both of my older sisters have passed away. The eldest of 7 passed away on January 3rd, 2015. Ruptured brain aneurysm. She was here, and then she wasn't. I harbored a lot of guilt for how much I took her for granted while she was around. I wasn't as good of a little brother to her as I should have been. She texted me to wish me a happy new year and tell me she loved me 2 days before she never replied to that text. That haunts me to this day. After she passed, I was working 2 jobs, 60 hours a week. Didn't have time to properly mourn, to grieve, to heal. I just stuffed it all down and white-knuckled through life. I dealt with the aftermath alone. I didn't want to feel like a burden to my other siblings and my parents. They lost her too. It took years to finally start to relax, to accept that loss, to forgive myself. July 7th of 2023 was when my other older sister passed away. She had been fighting cancer for a few months. The treatments were shrinking her tumors, but the side effects caused a host of other issues. She ultimately ended up having a stroke and died from that. Her death ripped open that original wound from 8.5 years before and doubled it in size. Again, I dealt with the aftermath alone. I didn't want to feel like a burden to my other siblings and my parents. They lost her too. Her death absolutely broke me. That pain brought me to my knees every single day. Every single day, I stood up, wiped the tears from my face, and went to my job. I pretended to be okay because I didn't want to talk about it. I did that every day for almost 4 months before I finally had enough. I managed to save enough money to pay 3 months worth of bills. I quit my job and I did nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. I only left the house to go to Walmart to buy more cookies. Yeah, I ate 10,000 calories of just cookies every single day, in addition to all the fast food I was eating. I gained 50 pounds in those 3 months. I also came up with a very specific and detailed plan of how I was going to kill myself, and everything I wanted to check off my bucket list before I went through with it.
We're going to pause here for a moment. And one of the things that I noticed was how Brian's brain was trying to keep him safe. Isolation, withdrawal, self blame. These are amygdala driven responses. His nervous system shifted into survival mode, lowering energy and motivation to conserve resources. It's not laziness, it's biology. And even if we feel like we should act differently, our brain is doing what it thinks will keep us alive. This may be a good moment to just take a small break. This is a heavy episode. And I want to say how appreciative I am of Brian for being able to really have the courage to share this, because I know it can't be easy. And I can't even imagine the loss he's carried for so long. So now, after we've taken some grounding breaths, we're going to hear about Brian's coping struggles, including self-isolation, self-harm, and eventually reconnection.
While all this was going on, I wasn't on speaking terms with my best friend. We had some stupid argument a year prior, one that I don't even remember at this point, and I overreacted as I have a nasty habit of doing. Eventually, I ran out of money and I had to find another job. I went back to a job I had previously moving furniture in a warehouse. I hated that job before and I knew I would hate it again. But it's also the most important, life-saving job I've ever had. In addition to going back to moving furniture for 10 hours a day, I started going back to the gym. Over the course of the next 6 months, I lost 40 pounds. I was starting to get my groove back. I reconnected with my best friend. There was an awkward stretch of a few months where we had to feel each other out again to determine what our relationship was going to be. But now we're the closest we've ever been. I say all the time, she's like my twin sister who just got separated in the cosmos. This woman saved my life. I remember the day I told her I'd made plans to end my life. She immediately wrapped her arms around me and said, "No, I vote we don't do that. I'll find you in hell and kick your fucking ass." I cried in her arms. I was finally able to release all that pain that had been building and building and building. I told her I felt worthless, that I felt unlovable, and that I was unworthy and undeserving of love. She told me that wasn't true, but there was nothing that could convince me otherwise. That day, I promised her I wouldn't kill myself, that I wouldn't hurt her that way. Sealed it with a pinky promise. We take that shit seriously.
I want to take a moment and just stop here because there's a few tools I want to provide you as the listeners that you can utilize if you find yourself in situations like this. But one of the things I really want to point out in Brian's story that is so important and I know is so hard for so many of us to do But being able to reach out and connect with somebody, because those safe connections are so important. They are so invaluable. And like what Brian said in this story, that is what saved his life. Being able to reach out and reconnect. Now, I know from my own personal experience and many people that I've met throughout my life, reaching out isn't always something that we can get ourselves to do, right? And how do we combat that when we feel like we're a burden? When we don't want to put our stress onto other people? Even if there are plenty of people that tell us things like, I'm here for you, you're not a burden, you are never too much. Sometimes we're still fighting ourselves to actually believe that. Brian said it in his own words. He felt all of those things. So if you're one of those people that really struggles to reach out for support in your time of need, and if journaling isn't something that you can do, because journaling is one of those tools that's recommended, even backed by neuroscience, in a situation like this. But I'm realistic, and I know that not everybody can sit there and journal. Personally, I'll sit and stare at a blank page for hours and nothing will come out. But one thing I did notice that really helps me in moments like this is recording a voice note or a voice memo. I also have realized, and I know there's a lot of back and forth with how people feel about AI, but I have heard pretty consistently over the last several months how people are turning to AI as a form of therapy, as a way of starting to let go of what they're carrying and what they're holding on to if they don't feel safe or comfortable enough to share that information with the people in their lives. So it might be something to look into. Voice notes are super helpful too, because hearing yourself say those things, getting them out, can be a relief all on its own. It's low pressure, you don't have to worry about interacting with anybody, and you don't have to worry about reactions or feeling like a burden. Grounding exercises. This is another good one, and we've discussed these a bit. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 sensory check. 5 things you see, 4 you touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, and 1 you can taste. This signals safety to your amygdala, and it pulls activity back into the prefrontal cortex. One of the things that I had learned over the last several months that had really helped me kind of pull myself back when I felt like I was spiraling or dissociating was that I'd have this little crescent moonstone that whenever I felt like I was having those moments coming on, I would just put it in my hand and I would rub it. And that really helped me come back to the present moment, helped me recenter and move forward. Now, movement and sensory input is really important in situations like this. So, gentle walking, stretching, or tapping can stimulate the vagus nerve, calming the nervous system. And I can do an episode of that, maybe bring somebody in that can walk us through tapping more. But these aren't about fixing yourself. I want to be very clear. These things are not about fixing yourself, because if you ask me, you're not broken. But they are about working with your biology, not against it. So I want to take a moment and notice how reconnection triggers healing. Neuroscience shows that social support activates mirror neurons. So it releases oxytocin and dopamine and quiets the amygdala. Protective mode sometimes means leaning on somebody, even when it feels like a burden. Connection, all on its own, is a survival tool. So if you're one of those people who feels you can't reach out, you can't journal, or even talk to someone, notice and name these cues internally, emotions and body sensations can reduce that amygdala effect of overactivation and strengthens your prefrontal cortex engagement. So we're going to go and move into the next part of Brian's story, where it talks about his recovery and being able to connect. and how important and invaluable that has been in his life with his experience. And then we'll come back and we'll discuss some more.
This was about a year ago. I was grateful to have her back in my life, to experience her unconditional love for me once again. I felt like I didn't deserve her love at all. I was still miserable, still hated myself, still wanted to die. I just knew I couldn't let her down. It was also around this time that I started a new job, the best paying job I've ever had. I was still miserable, but I started to be financially comfortable. At least I got that box checked. I'm still at that job now. So to recap on where I was a year ago, I got my best friend back in my life. I'm making the most money I've ever made at any point in my life. And I'm still completely miserable. Over the next few months, I began self-harming in ways that I won't get into specifics of. It became my evening ritual after returning home from work. I did this for months. It was my only release. Till one day I realized what I was doing wasn't alleviating my pain, and in fact just making it worse. So I stopped. It's kind of wild how the universe can radically alter the trajectory of your life with a chance encounter. 4 months ago, I met 2 people at my best friend's house that were there to hang out and party. They were a couple at the time, man and woman. The very first thing this dude said to me was, "Shut the fuck up, Brian. Brian, shut the fuck up. You're talking too much." I hadn't said a word. This dude immediately recognized how shy, timid, and introverted I was, and that was his way of trying to get me to lighten up. The first thing I talked about was what I had done earlier that day. I had gone to a thrift store and found a copy of Beerfest on DVD and a copy of the Bible. I brought both to the front counter, and as I set them down in front of the elderly woman working behind the counter, I immediately realized how funny the juxtaposition of setting those 2 items down was. He asked me if I've ever read the Bible. I told him that I hadn't, but I probably should because my sister bought me a Bible about a year before she died. That gave him pause before he said, "Wait, your dead sister gave you a Bible before she died? Dude, you have to read that shit. That is ancient wisdom." Over the course of the night, he kept reiterating, "Dude, your dead sister gave you a Bible. That's not a coincidence. She wanted you to have that wisdom." Never before had I met a person that I just immediately clicked with. We're both obsessed with the band Sleep Token. First person I'd met that matched my passion for their music and for music in general. Conversation over the course of the evening got easier and easier for me. It's like we had been best friends our entire lives and we just hadn't met yet.
I just want to pause for just a second here before we finish the rest of Brian's story, just to show you how valuable connection really can be and how you find it when you least expect it, but when you need it the most.
Woman from that relationship just so happens to be the founder of this podcast. Admittedly, our connection needed a little more time in the oven to become what it's become. After she and him split up, I sent her a song that I hoped would cheer her up. From there, we started small by just sharing songs that we love back and forth. Eventually, we started talking about more and more real shit, and now I feel as close to her as I have anyone in my life. She's mama to me now. These 2 human beings choosing to love me and want to be friends with me proved my best friend right. I'm 36 years old and I'm finally happy to be alive. I finally feel like I'm enough. I finally love myself. It just took 3 incredibly special and beautiful human beings to show me what was true all along. That I am lovable. I am worthy and deserving of love. And so are you. I encourage all of you, go to that party, go to that concert, any kind of social gathering. You never know who you'll meet that could change your life in the most amazing of ways. It is never too late. Thank you for your time. If nobody else has told you today, Nice butt. You're beautiful.
Brian and his sense of humor. It just goes to show that even in the hardest of times, that sometimes a sense of humor can save a lot of pain. Brian, we love you. We love you so much. And I can't express to you how grateful I am that you are willing to be vulnerable and share this episode with the listeners. It takes a lot of guts, and I'm really proud of you. So now I want to take a moment to recap everything that we've listened to, some of the tools that we've utilized or can utilize in these moments, and what survival protective mode can really look like. That these things that happen within our body are more normal than maybe a lot of us believe or think. And a lot of the purpose behind me creating this podcast was not only to be vulnerable myself, because I realize how much value that brings, and not only to my own healing, but to potentially other people's healings that get to hear these things, to really understand that none of us are ever truly alone. And we all kind of experience the same things as far as the way our bodies respond to them. They might have different context, but a lot of the reactions and responses that we're working through are very similar. So to recap, protective mode is survival. It is not laziness. Isolation and withdrawal are your brain's way of managing overwhelming stress. So, grounding, movement, self-recording, AI-assisted reflections, and connections release stress chemicals and engage prefrontal regulation. Another key concept is unspoken communication. Unspoken cues can guide you towards opportunities to support yourself and others. Sometimes people don't verbalize their pain, but their body, their tone, or behavior signals at it. So paying close attention to those cues helps us understand not only our own protective behaviors, but it also helps us meet others where they are. Your nervous system communicates first through your body. Slumped posture, flat tone, pulling away. These are survival responses, not personality flaws. Recognizing them lets you respond appropriately and non-judgmentally. Protective mode isn't just withdrawing. It can show up subtly. Observing, staying curious, and offering non-judgmental support teaches empathy and strengthens people skills. And remember, even small biology-backed actions, like listening to a recording of your future self, moving, or breathing, are tools your nervous system can understand. So speaking of some tools, let's just go over them again and maybe add some more so that I can just provide them to you guys here. So if you want them, you need them, you have them, and you can utilize them. That's what this podcast is all about, not only touching on the hard stuff, but providing ways to handle that. That is so important because I think so many of us don't have the tools we really need to break free. So one thing I had seen that I thought was an excellent idea is recording present you for future you. So think of it as a way for present you to help future you. On a calm day when you're feeling really good, take 2 minutes to record a voice note reminding yourself of truths you tend to forget when you're spiraling. Things like why you matter, what you've survived, and what you know will pass. Later, when you're in those moments where you feel like you really can't trust your own brain, you borrow the voice of a steadier version of yourself. This taps into the hippocampus and auditory processing centers, literally utilizing your own voice. That's powerful. Micro movements. Don't think go exercise. That's too big. Just stand up, stretch your arms, tap your fingers together, or just walk to the door and back. Movement regulates your vagus nerve and calms the amygdala, and it signals to your body that you're safe now. So another option is temperature shifts. Splash cold water on your face. Hold an ice cube. Step outside for fresh air. These sensory jolts activate the diving reflex and they lower heart rate, giving your nervous system a reset button. Now, if you don't want to list 5 things, you can name one anchor in your room. Just one. Just look around and say out loud, I see my coffee mug, or I see my chair. That tiny act forces the brain to switch networks from emotional overwhelmed back to present moment awareness. This is where that crescent moonstone really came in handy for me because I could see it, I could feel it, I could touch it, I could smell it if I wanted to, right? But rubbing it always brought me back. Another one of my personal favorites is music as regulation. Put on one song that matches how you're feeling. Then choose one that shifts you slightly up, right? So music activates the reward centers in your brain, and sequencing it in this way gently guides your mood instead of forcing a jump that may feel too big to shift or even feel impossible to do. Give some of these tools a try. If you find it difficult to reach out, if you don't enjoy journaling, or it's not something you find very helpful in those really heavy moments, these might be good alternatives for you. What I love about this is that it makes it so healing doesn't have to look or feel like work, right? It doesn't always look like journaling pages or calling 3 friends. Sometimes it's listening to your own voice, splashing your face with water, or naming the chair in front of you. The key is to meet yourself where you are, not where the self-help books say you should be. So here's your invitation. Don't judge yourself when the classic tools don't fit. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means your brain is protecting you in the only way it knows how. And now you've got a few new ways to work with it instead of working against it. Because in the end, healing isn't about doing the right thing. It's about finding your thing. The one thing that brings you back into your body, your breath, your moment, until you're ready to take that next step. Remember, healing isn't linear, and it's never too late to reconnect or begin moving forward. So that's it for today's episode. I appreciate you showing up for yourself and doing this hard work. It's not easy. It's not an easy choice to decide to make. And if today's content triggered you, pause, take a breath, reach out, utilize one of the tools above. Resources are in the show notes, and remember, you are worthy, you are enough, and you are lovable. Thank you for listening. I hope this episode gives you insight into your own protective strategies and encourages self-compassion. And if you want to connect or share your story, my DMs are always open on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. All the details will be in the show notes below. Until next time, I love you and keep the fire lit.